Hey everyone, Joe here, and today's guest is none other than Dr. Randy Overbeck. Randy, pleased to meet you.
Delighted to be joining you, Joe.
Yeah, we've talked a bit before recording, and we've got a bit in common, including our education a bit. What is your educational background? I'm curious.
I am a long-standing educator. I
Right.
spent 40 years serving children as first a teacher, then a college professor, and then I ran school districts for 28 years. So the
Uh,
last part is I got a PhD in educational leadership. Uh,
oh, Ed-led. Okay, I know this. This is something near and dear to my heart. My aunt's trajectory was an EDD PhD, and she did a much of the same. Like you start off a teacher, then you start giving, 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 and pretty sure you're teaching at universities for the next generation. What set of students did you like the most teaching? Was it the younger ones or the college students or university, as it say in the
Believe it or not, now I've taught everything from junior high, high school, college, and of course I taught adults in
right?
my job every day. The older they got, the harder it was to teach them. So the ones that were most fun were the middle school and the high school kids. I know that doesn't
Even
sound
the
like that
dreaded
would be the
junior high
case, but
kids?
that's
No, I can kind of see that, especially with the older adults who don't necessarily want to be in that situation of being taught, you
yeah.
know?
And most of the time when I work with teachers and administrators, I was a change agent, and nobody likes to change by and large. So
Oh
that
no.
was part of it.
No. Well, yeah, but the thing is, we all need change, otherwise we're the same thing, and the thing might be broken. And it takes sometimes an external person to see, hey, this needs to happen. This is how you fix it, this, and this. No one likes that, but that gets into our writing. I know from my experience as a writer that sometimes editors can go, no, we just can't do any of this. Do you have that ever happen to your writing where an editor came in and said, ooh, no, 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 no?
Well, I think the answer is yes and no. Uh,
Right.
the editors that have worked with me, which I have two, um, have found my work to be very authentic. But that doesn't mean that when they look at it, there aren't things that they go, this is a little too much, or you're missing this part. And I'm very grateful for that input because I think it strengthens the manuscript and makes it more readable.
Absolutely. And that's great. And I think by taking the feedback and maybe because of your education and maybe because of your job before, being able to take the feedback as well helps you strengthen it. Do you sometimes cross over your academic training, not so much your career, but you're actually training through the academics into your writing?
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the things that people notice all the time about my writing is how authentic, how much depth there is, and that's
Yeah.
because I do a great deal of research. So in each of my books, there are aspects of which, when I went in, I didn't know much about it. So my haunted shore mystery series are all location mysteries. So the first one takes place on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay. The second one in Cape May, New Jersey. The third one in a beautiful small town of Crystal River, Florida. And this latest one is Saugatuck, Michigan, which is on the shore of Lake Michigan. None of those places had I ever that I grow up in.
Right.
So in each case, I had to learn the culture, the language, the experiences of each one of those places, and the research that was a regular part of my job as an educator became very valuable in trying to fashion these books because I had to research everything from
Yeah.
how to sail a boat, which I had never done. That's a big part of the first book, as to how to swim with manatees. I had to do research on human trafficking, all kinds of things. So yeah, there is a lot of carryover. Not to mention, my hero is a teacher, so that kind of puts it in the context of schools. So
No, absolutely. And that's great. I love that point of view where research is important. And I think a lot of people shy away from that, or they were in the mindset that they can just write whatever they want. But if you're from those locations, you're going to pick it out. Like, oh no, I mean, and those are different places, like Michigan and Florida, dynamically opposing. I mean, there's different cultures. There's
yeah,
different cultures entirely.
and it was, and I've been very gratified because I've had a number of reviewers on Amazon will
Mm,
talk about how well I captured the ambiance of the area. They said it's
mm,
that you hit it. And my books are all historicals in the sense that they take place 25 years ago. So the very first book in the series takes place in 1998, the second book in
oh.
99, the third book in 2000, and the last one, the one that's coming out now this year, actually takes place in 2007. So they all have a time period that's a little distant from where we are right now.
That's fascinating from my work point of view as well. Was Generation X, I'm posting it back there, and it is a different time frame. You know, cell phones, internet. This is all starting to creep into our lives. It hasn't quite been, and then you know, I mean, the cell phones used to be this big. They
Yep.
had
I
12
remember.
minutes on
Yep.
them. You can
Yep.
only call it your state. You couldn't call out, you know. And now everyone's got things in the pocket. So from your doing it from 25 years ago or so, and the readers of today, how does that hit the audience?
Well, and it does. Some reviewers and readers have responded to the fact of they'll say something like, "When you read this book, you have to do a reset because if you're looking for quick internet or cell
Right.
phone, um, you won't find it." Now, that had nothing to do with my placement of it. My placement of it was really a very simple, logical extension of the storyline. So, in the
Okay.
first book, Blood on the Chesapeake, which takes place in 1998. I chose that year because the murder mystery, the cold case murder mystery, is actually a lynching that occurred in the school some 30 some years earlier. So my conceptual design was if these were kids that did lynching, teenagers, in 68, the last 63, the last lynchings in the United States, correction, the last recorded lynchings in the United
There you go.
States occurred in 63, 64. So I kind of said, okay, if this happened in 63, 64, at what point would they be power brokers in the town? And that's 30 some years later when they're in their nearing 50, 48, 50 years old.
Right.
So that's how I chose the year of 1998 because that made the story make sense.
That's an amazing work for that's actually amazing logic. It really is. Because you did the research and then knew enough to say like, okay, you can't make it in the 70s because they're only 10 years, you know, what I did last summer type thing.
Right,
It's going to be when they're older and actually have power. This
right.
is when things might some haunting them
And
and come
what,
back at them. I like that idea.
you know, so the story is that my protagonist
Mm,
is actually a Midwesterner like myself, although he's from Michigan, but he gets dumped at the altar and is just looking to start his life over again at the age of 25, and he finds what he think is his perfect job, uh, teaching history. He's a history teacher and coaching
mm.
football and basketball. Um, on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay, except when he gets there, he finds out this little tiny little athletic office that he gets is haunted by this teen who had been lynched some 30 some years earlier.
That's a great story. It really is. It's a perfect hook. It's a perfect meld of contemporary and older legends, right? Now, for your title, where do you get your titles from? Because that's a brilliant title, by the way.
Well, I started with Blood on the Chesapeake because it seemed like a kind of a natural extension of, kind of what this was about blood. And then
Right.
once I did that, I went, okay, well, what do I do? So the second one became Crimson at Cape May for similar
Nice.
reasons. The third one became Scarlet at Crystal River. And this newest one is called Red Shadows at Saugatuck. And one of the things that I attempt to do with my books is now, first of all, I don't want to give the wrong impression. The books are fun reads. They are great mysteries. They've won Mystery of the Year awards. I mean, and
Yeah.
nobody's picking these books up for any other reason than they're interested in a mystery or a ghost story. But in
Yeah.
each case, I'm trying to deal with serious issues the country is grappling with. So, in the first book was all about racial injustice, and even and the lynching is just the tip of the iceberg. So Daryl, who is finding out later the kid is lynched, which of course the town has a different story of what happened
Right.
about suicide, and but he's encountering racial injustice issues in school 30 some years later and connecting the two. In the second book, the murder is tied to human trafficking. And that's because I learned when I was doing my research in New Jersey that that area is the largest human trafficking ring in the United States.
It's a hub.
Because
Yeah.
human trafficking travels the way all other freight does. It travels on the interstate. And if you think about New Jersey, there's Garden State Parkway, New Jersey Parkway, Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I-95, which are some of the most traveled routes in the United States. And then when I went to Florida and I decided I wanted to set one in Florida, I decided to focus on um, abuse of migrants, the whole immigration issue in the South.
Mm.
And that was very powerful. And the newest book, I decided to tackle another issue. So the newest book, Red Shadow of Saugatuck, the murder is connected to MMIW, which didn't exist in 2007. That stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. So the whole
Right.
issue
That's
about
relatively new.
rape, kidnapping, murder of indigenous women, which really didn't get much play until about 2017 or 2018. My story's
Yeah.
taking place in 2007, but this gave me a way to shine a light on that at that particular time.
Well, it's fascinating because it gives a bit of a history lesson. So they are really historical in the sense that 20 years ago, but it's also historical in the sense that the snapshot of the time. And you're right, like the indigenous women, especially, still don't get enough
No, they don't.
attention when they go missing or abused, and definitely didn't get any attention at all about 20 years ago.
Right, and kind of that's how what I did is it, I portray in the story how the community is reacting to the fact that these girls are going missing. What they say things like, "Oh,
Right.
well, these girls disappear all the time. They run off." So that's part of the response that Daryl, that's my hero, and his family get when they're asking questions about this teenage girl that's gone missing. And most of his concerns emanate because he cares about. So, this is a teenager gone missing. The guy who's lynched in London Chesapeake was a 16-year-old black student.
Right.
In Florida, there are 4 and 5-year-old immigrant children that are murdered. So he's all about taking care of kids, and that kind of hits his heartstrings. So he starts looking at, well, like what happened to these people, and the ghosts kind of help a little bit. Although I'm very careful with the ghosts. The ghosts don't solve any mysteries. They don't do any magic
Right.
thing like that. They just drop enough breadcrumbs for him to find who needs to be brought to justice. That's kind of.
This would make a great TV show, by the way. It
I've
seems like a
actually
very visual set.
I've been approached by three individuals or organizations. Nothing has
Very good.
panned out yet, but who knows? We'll see.
Oh, yeah. It's as I used to say, Hollywood. Even if you get like, oh, I got a production deal. Like, do you? Until it's actually made, you might have a sign, but that's about all. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
when
there's
you're
a good story.
writing these,
There's a good story about that. So, one of my writing conferences, I met um, uh, the author of the Stephanie Plum mysteries. Do
oh
you know
yeah,
those? One for the money, two for the okay.
yeah,
Uh, Ivanovich, Janet Ivanovich. She said that she sold the film rights to the first book, One for the Money, and it took them 20 years to develop the movie. The movie ended up being terrible, incidentally, but so even though she sold it, I didn't know this, she didn't get any money. She sold it for $1 million
yeah.
way back when, which has been huge money back when One for the Money came out. But you didn't get any money till 20 years later when they actually decided to make
Actually
the movie.
make it. Oh my gosh, like 20 years. I
20
was
years.
feeling bad about 10. Like, oh, nothing happened.
Well, one advantage is that my books have is that they're not contemporary. So
Right.
whenever somebody decides to do that, the fact that they're portraying something that happened in 1998 or 2000, or in this case, in the new book 2007, if they do that 5 years from now, it'll be just as powerful as it would be in 25.
No, and that's actually part of the comeback right now. There's things like Fear Street where they're bringing back the older decades, or
Right.
the previous decades, I should say,
But I should say,
because
choosing to write that created a challenge, and it was a research challenge because, like, well, what exactly did they have in terms of cell phones or internet in 2000? Because in 1998, 1999, the only people who had cell phones basically were either rich people or drug pushers. Those were
yeah,
the only ones that had cell phones, you know. So Daryl doesn't end up getting a cell phone, I think, until the 2000, I think, or maybe not. Maybe he has it in the 2007. Anyway, that's just one small example of, like, what could he do in 1998 to look something up the way we do today? Google didn't exist. See,
right, Alta Vista at best,
that
you
was
know,
Ask Jeeves.
like 90, 99, 98, I think.
I think not. Ask Jeeves was 99. I think.
Ashes, yeah. Man, all these things don't exist anymore. So
Yeah,
when you're doing these, and you have, I do believe, for July 23rd, a new one coming out.
yeah. The location is Saugatuck, Michigan, is on the western side of the Lower Peninsula, or on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, and it's a really beautiful, welcoming town, part of the Art Coast on that side of Michigan. A lot of people from Chicago vacation there, but if you're not from that area, you
Yeah.
probably don't know about this place. So, um,
No, I got it confused with Saginaw. When I first saw it, I'm like, Saginaw, that's not how you
yeah,
spell it.
that's this is a much smaller town. We're talking,
Smaller than
yeah.
Saginaw?
So
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
probably without tourists. Oh, we're talking in
Yeah.
between 1,000 and 2,000, probably. I mean, it's not a
Oh
large
wow.
town. But that's part of what
Almost
makes it kind
unincorporated.
of an interesting place, and it is within uh, 30 minutes maybe of the uh, of the Gun Lake tribe, of the branch of the Ojibwe Indians that are close by,
Cool.
and I wanted that to be part of the to be able to have that connection as part of the story. So
That sounds a great story.
it involves a little bit about story on the water of Lake Michigan. It involves story in the town. The best part of the story, I'll be real honest, is so there is a what I used to call romantic arc. I now call a family arc. So in the first book,
Hmm.
Daryl and his soon-to-be partner Aaron meet. Second book, they fall in love. The third book, they're actually on their honeymoon in Florida. In this fourth book,
Oh wow.
which takes place 7 years after they're married, they have a 5-year-old son, and the 5-year-old son Leo has inherited his father's ability to see ghosts. So it allowed me to do a lot of very interesting about family and about concern for little ones and what happens, and of course this is a very precocious 5-year-old who's very curious, and he can't always tell the difference between the ghost and the people next to the ghost. So it gave me lots of interesting ways for him to explore that ability of, um, how do you navigate that world, and what Daryl and Aaron had to do to teach him about things are not always the way they appear, and sometimes you're going to get yourself in trouble if you go too far and stuff. It was a very it was a fun book to write, and so far the early reviews have been nothing short of fantastic. So I'm thrilled
Well,
about
it sounds like an amazing book, and I love series like this because it allows the readers. I grew up on Agatha Christie, so we always like this series, and especially if it's a mystery that has a good hook, and your books really have all that. And I really can't wait to read this one. And it comes out on July 23rd. Yes.
it. July 23rd, 2025 will mark the launch of the fourth book in the series. I'm really excited. In fact, with the publisher's agreement, we decided to launch it in Saugatuck. So
Oh
I will
wow.
be there in the town to launch it on the 23rd of this month. I actually have 4 appearances in the town, signing books and appearing at their art fair and stuff. So I'm really excited about it.
That's very cool. So when you're doing these, how can people get a hold of you on social media, websites, and stuff like that, so they know where to go?
The easiest way is to hit my website, which is just author www.author Randy Overbeck. Can't be any .com. So it can't be any
Simple.
harder than that. I'm on most of the major platforms. I'm on Overbeck Randy at Overbeck Randy for on X. I'm on author Randy Overbeck on Facebook, on Instagram, any of those. But the and all of those are clickable, of course, from the website, and also information on the book and buy links on the book or on the website as well. So
So
it's one stop.
authorrandyoverbeck.com is where you should go. Have all the links. I love it.
That's it. AuthorRandyOverbeck.com. That's it.
I love it.
I,
So, Dr. Randy,
I
I
want to
have a
plug one more
question.
thing
I
here.
was that?
I said I want to plug one more thing when I
Oh,
can. I
please.
also have a podcast
Yes.
that is only tangentially related to these particular books. It's called Great Stories About Great Storytellers.
Love it.
And in 10 to 12 minutes, I take a famous author, director, or poet, and I tell both what people know about them, like how many books they've sold and how many awards they win and and then the hook at the end of the podcast is what they don't know about
Very cool.
this author. And I do famous authors like John Grisham and James Patterson and Lee Child and um, Nora Roberts and Agatha Christie. I do both classic authors and current bestsellers. And it's a podcast that's growing in popularity every month. So I'm really thrilled
Well,
about
I love it because multimedia or multimodal. I love that. So the podcast really is something I would be into because I love writers of all kinds and I love history. So you can combine them both. I'm there. I love it.
that. It takes a lot of, again, it's a big research thing.
Right.
So I do a lot of research into the background of all the people, and you'll learn what you never knew about Alfred Hitchcock or Steven
Yeah.
Spielberg and Gene Roddenberry, and as well as the authors that we're familiar with, Ray Bradbury. And so I try to do women's lit. I try to do mysteries. I try to do thrillers. I try to do science fiction. So it's a nice range of authors,
That's
fantasies
very cool. And they're all 10 minutes,
as
yeah?
well.
Thinking back, what advice would you give younger you? And I mean younger, like teenage or early childhood.
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, you know, I've been able because I had so much experience in
Right.
schools. I'm able to draw from that experience so that when I create the stories that I write, I there's some realism and some background to that. But I started doing this when I was a very young man. I started keeping a journal, but life intervened and
Right.
I had three kids. And if I could go back, I wish I had kept up that
Hmm.
practice for 40 years because my memory is only so good, and had I had something to jog that, it probably would have been much more helpful. I wanted when I was a
Hmm.
teenager, I had wanted to be a writer. I thought I was going to write the next great American novel. Um, I was all excited about that. Wrote in high school, but somewhere between high school and going to college, the call to serve kids as a teacher came and beckoned, and I answered. I've never been sorry about
Right.
that. I've treasured the years that I spent, and I think many children's lives are better because I was there to help support them, educate them. But I never lost my desire to write. So when I got the chance to do a second act, I decided I was going to go back to that. Do I wish I had started writing more? Yeah, but you only have so much
Right.
time, and family came first, and then my work came second, and there just wasn't much time left after that. So, but I'm glad to be where I am right now. I'm not at all unhappy. I just signed a contract with a agency for another book that's coming out probably in 2 years. So things could not be better in my
Well,
writing
that's
world.
great. And that's the point. Sometimes we put things on pause and we come back when they're ready for us and we're ready for them. And honestly, you have award-winning Haunted Shores mystery series with a new book coming out on July 23rd. That ain't bad, you know?
Uh, and I've been, two of the books made bestseller lists.
Perfect.
The first book was the number one bestseller on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. The second book was let's see if I can give this right. In September of 21, was the second highest selling ghost story book in the United
Wow.
States. ahead of Stephen King, ahead of Dean Koontz, ahead of. I didn't keep that for very long, but still,
Milestone.
to accomplish that, I feel very proud of
You
that.
should. You should. That's an amazing thing. That's an amazing journey. And I'm so glad we got to talk. And honestly, I can't wait for the 23rd to pick up my copy. I want to see what happens. I do. I want to see what happens. And Dr. Randy, I want to say thanks again for coming. On behalf of myself and Dr. Randy Overbeck, I bid you good day. Bye, everyone.